Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But we can start. They can
Yeah.
come.
Well, I guess on that note, Erin is gone today, so I guess as the vice chair, it's my job to take over her duties when she's not here.
Yep.
Never thought that would happen. I thought Erin would be here all the time.
She's always here.
So I guess
He apologizes,
Yes.
by the way.
with that said, I guess we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order and begin with the comment period for any citizen participation at this time.
Four items
Or
that are on the agenda.
for items that are not on the agenda.
That are
Are on the agenda.
Yeah.
So there we go. Doesn't appear that we have any, so we will go ahead and move on to agenda item number 2, the approval of the minutes from the meeting of August 17, 2017. Everybody get a chance to see the minutes and read the minutes, get through them? Have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Do you need a second?
Second?
There we go. Very good. Those in, any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving along. Item number 3. We have an informational presentation today regarding the RTC's, Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada's Seeing Orange program. We have John Pinellas, otherwise known as JP, with us here to go to...
Good to see you, Shannon.
Yeah, to give us a presentation.
It's a pleasant surprise.
All yours.
Well,
JP.
thank you. But we're having some technical difficulties here that might not come to the rescue. So, what have you been up to, Shannon? Are you here full time, or are you still in Phoenix mostly?
No, I'm here full time.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
no, I'm here all the time. Full time here in Vegas.
Good deal. Good deal.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is the first time I've actually, like I say, Aaron's, I just was elected as the vice chair of this committee last meeting. So this is, and then my first meeting of it, Ellen's gone, so, or Aaron's gone.
Yeah, she doesn't miss many.
No, she doesn't.
So is she traveling, or she at a
So
conference?
she said she's
She's out of
presenting
town.
somewhere, right?
Right,
Oh, okay.
yeah, right.
She's presenting out.
We're in the process of collecting ransom.
Ah, very good. I could, I would donate.
There were no seconds.
Well, anyway, I guess I could start. I'm John Pinuelos, for the record, the Director of Engineering in the Streets and Highways Department. Very happy to be here. Talk a little bit about what we're doing on the project coordination front. Seeing Orange specifically. I have our Regional Traffic Control Coordinator here, Mr. Chris Schwarz. We like to call him the Cone Ranger. He's out there every day. He works very closely with Jacob Simmons in transit operations, and Nathan Goldberg? Yeah, Goldberg. Okay. See Nathan here? Oh, there he is. Oh, there's Jacob. There's Jacob there. Yeah, it on a really certainly a weekly basis, if not a daily basis. Making sure that the bus stops are clear, and when they're not clear, when there has to be a work zone, that those work zones are coordinated around the bus stops in the best way possible to minimize the disruption to the service. So anyway, thank you. Appreciate that. A little background. The fuel revenue indexing. That's kind of where this all started. Back in 2013, there was legislation that enabled us to tie the rate at which we tax fuel to inflation. Prior to that, between 1995 and 2013, that fuel tax was flat. And consequently, when things fell apart, in the late 2000s, our revenue stream, went in the tank. So we went from a position of, on average, having about $136 million to spend on roadway improvements. That went down, our projectors were saying about $22 million, which is enough to do basically nothing. So it was a drastic situation. It was an emergency situation. The legislature, governors, the local community, the governor, the local community got together and basically modeled this after what was going on in Washoe County, where there was a tie to inflation. That fortunately passed. It was passed on essentially on an interim basis between 2013 and 2016. The Board of County Commissioners, in the ordinance that adopted it for use down here in the county, or in Clark County, put a provision in there that it needed to go to the voters in 2016 to see if it was going to be extended 10 years. And that happened, thankfully. The wisdom of the Clark County, Southern Nevada voters was apparent. So just some statistics. Fry 1 has been a great success. We're not through with the program. We're maybe 75, 80% through the money. So far to date, we have about $276 million worth of projects that have been completed, about $415 million worth of projects that are currently underway, and with the Fry 2 or the Fry extension passing, that enables us to have a more consistent long-term revenue stream that we project can bring in. Right now, the current projections are about $1.6 billion over the next 10 years. In addition to that, NDOT has a piece of that pie, and they're going to be bringing in about $1.2 billion. Legislatively, that all has to be spent in Clark County. So the bottom line is we have nearly $3 billion to spend over the next 10 to 15 years, just on roadway improvements. Okay, now you combine that with all the work that's being done by the utilities and private development, there is a need for cone management. And Seeing Orange was really conceived in a way or for exactly that purpose. The pent-up demand that was caused during the depression, it was a depression, in the late 2000s, combined with the fact that we had this Fuel Revenue 1 indexing money hitting the street all about at the same time, really caused a lot of problems. Disruptions not only to transit services, but pretty much anything that took place on the roadway. So Seeing Orange was necessary to try to get a handle on that. So what is Seeing Orange? It's essentially a one-stop shop to get project information when you see a cone out there, what the heck is going on. If you're inconvenienced by a work zone, the last thing that you care about is whose jurisdiction it is in. And that was one of the problems that was happening, is you'd run across these things, you wouldn't know who to call. So the RTC came up to the plate, stepped up to the plate, put out a website, put out a phone number, staffed up in order to run these things down. Within 72 hours, you will have an answer if you run across the cone zone. And people are really just interested in the most basic information. What is it? How long is it going to be in their way? And if we can answer those two questions in a timely manner, most people are happy with that. So there are two ways to get information, seeingorangenv.com, and then of course you could call the number, a person will answer it, and we will get back to you with the project information. That's one of the things that Chris does a lot. We'll get a call. Now that we have the resources internally, Chris can either access the roadway network via the FAST cameras, the incident management cameras that we have, or you can call the jurisdiction, or he can get in his truck and go out and see what the heck is going on. A lot of times those things have to do with issues with transit. You can get to the bottom of it, and he's going to have a couple success stories here in a minute, talking specifically about some instances where we've worked with the transit folks and individual riders in some circumstances to get them to where they need to go. So there we go. So this is what the website looks like. There's all kinds of tools out there. The most important probably is this map of work zones that are currently underway. This is an old map. This is about a year and a half old. Well, I'll give everybody, what I can do is I can send you the link, Ellen,
Yeah.
and then you could send the map, the link to the maps
Yeah.
out to the committee. And then this is, you have real-time project information, just like that.
But
And-
this website's available to the public, right?
well, yeah, that is true, but
Okay.
thank you, because I'm not used to, I'm used to dealing with the committees that have the actual, the project coordination committees. Yes, this is open to the public, anybody can get on here.
Great.
You don't need a link, just seeingorangenv.com, thank you. Click on Project Nap, and this will come up. But because, you know, this is a committee, we can give you all the project data if you want it. It's open to the public, so we'll send that out too, and you can see where this information is coming from.
Is this interactive? Can you click on the
Yes.
part there and say, where you click, it says.
Is that right?
What's going on
Can
there?
can you do that on this map? Yeah.
Hover over it, you can see the start and the
Oh, okay, cool.
jurisdiction.
Yeah. Yeah, we have that on the other maps. I wasn't sure if it was available on this map. It is. So, good question.
Is this just projects that are funded, like, you know, are they private developers who are doing road work too, or is it
That's
just county
excellent
and
question.
city and?
We're trying to make it as comprehensive as possible. If there's an orange cone on the ground, we want to know whose it is. We want to get it up on the map.
Sure.
Right now, the information that's most available to us are the projects that we fund and the
Right.
projects that we are made aware of through the project coordination committees. But Chris, in his travels, when he comes across, and his relationships that he's built with the contractors, when he comes across the private development, he'll call our GIS people and get that information in there. So frankly, right now, it's kind of catch as catch can, but we have been working with the home builders, we've been working with the industrial property developers, we're talking to the commercial real estate developers to get that private development information in the system more systematically. So that is a big part of it, because the projects that we fund are really, in the overall scheme of things, a small part of what's going on out there. And without that private development, it's not a complete picture. So that's a good question.
When there is private development that affects the public roadways, say some of the casinos are working on access or exits, and it affects them, is there some coordination between the public and private where it has an effect, but not necessarily an orange cone effect out in the street right there, but where you're restricted from turning right or turning left on the exit where you would normally go to out of a casino? If they're working on that, I know a couple of them, for instance, that it does affect the traffic out on the street, that there's not actually an orange cone out there, but they're affected by an orange cone zone.
That, absolutely, and the short answer to that is yes.
Okay.
The individual agencies, they are responsible for issuing what we call a barricade permit, or the encroachment permit that gives the contractor the right to move into the right-of-way to do whatever it is they need to do. In conjunction with that, they also have to develop a traffic control plan. Both of those things are reviewed and approved by the agency. So during that process, there is a communication especially with the big private owners, private property owners, the casinos, the malls, that kind of thing, where there's going to be disruption with service. So that coordination happens. Does it happen as good as it could? That's one thing we're working on. There's always room for improvement. And that's kind of the concept behind not only this map, but the bigger picture map that shows not only the projects that are in development or in construction, but also the projects that are planned. So everybody, private operators of big traffic generators, can see as well these projects, rolling down the pike. So another good question. Ways. So in addition to the tools that we have through our website, Seeing Orange, to figure out what the heck the work zone is that's in your way, we've also partnered with Waze to give you real-time tools to plan your commute more efficiently. Waze, it's a real-time traffic navigation app, crowdsourced, the largest user or driver community in the world. We have a very tight relationship with them. Chris, one of the things he does every week is take information that he finds, feeds it to Waze. Waze puts it on their common platform. FAST, RTC FAST, the people that operate the traffic signals and the variable message signs on the freeways also feed information to Waze. So accident information, work zone information, travel time information. So, it's kind of a two-pronged approach. We want to give you the heads up that there's something out there with the maps, but then when you're out there in the real world trying to get around, we want to give you the tools to deal with it when things pop up. Love the cone. We love traffic cones. I'm a traffic engineer. I really love traffic cones. Shannon can attest to that. They're orange, and that's my favorite color. So, but they are frustrating, and we know that. There are a lot of them, and we know that. But they are also, symbols of jobs, progress, and growth. I don't think anybody wants to go back to the situation in 2009, 10, 11 when nothing was going on, and we didn't have any of these things around because people were moving out of the city in droves trying to find work. Nobody wants to go back to that. So we put together this fun little ad campaign to be memorable and educational. Maybe we can hit the lights a little bit. Uh-oh, ruh-roh.
Hold on.
Let me stop.
I don't turn. Do you hear anything?
He stopped it though, so.
Okay, there we go.
As long as I can remember, people have hated me. The abuse is nonstop. I don't know why. I guess I'm always in the way. Maybe I'm a little inconvenient. Okay, more than a little. But I'm just doing my job. Building things. Roads, bridges, parks, buildings, new freeways, overpasses, useful things. I'm a symbol of progress, a sign of good things to come. If only people could see me for who I truly am, maybe then they could love me. Okay, maybe not.
So there you have it. I mean, I think that sums it up. It's a love-hate relationship with those things. We got to have them, and we have to manage them better. There's no question, particularly with respect to our transit system. But at the same time, can't live without it. So, anyway, I like that. So how are we doing that exactly? Our cone management strategy. There are two primary committees that deal with this. First is what used to be called the Utility Coordination Committee. That has been refocused, broadened its horizons, its responsibilities. It's now the Regional Project Coordination Committee, and instead of talking to the utilities exclusively about when particular improvements are going to be made to the utility network with respect to the roadway network, it's really now a more global approach. We've added members from the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. We've added members from the Clark County School District. We've added who's the other one? LVCVA. Oh, Metro Chamber of Commerce. Again, to your point, to get the private side of this thing into the mix so they can see what's going on well in advance of the cones showing up on their doorstep. So that's been very successful. We were getting excellent participation. The bottom line is, implement the Seeing Orange, getting the information out to people. The bottom line is, coordination, accountability, transparency. And I'll take coordination to the next level. We were really trying to move from an environment in where we coordinate projects to where we are really cooperating with projects. Coordination means the root of that word is order. You go first, we go second, you go third. That's all well and good, but what we really want is 1, 2, and 3 going at the same time. Using that, getting as much stuff in that trench when it's open the first time. And that's really the goal. And we're moving in that direction. Cone management partners, we got a lot of them. One big one that's not mentioned here is Southwest Gas. They have been tremendous, very participatory in all the committees. So that's great. And then success stories. We've got a lot. Chris can come up and give you just a couple of examples on specifically how we're working with the transit ops and transit planning.
Hello, my name's Chris Schwartz. I'm the Regional Traffic Control Coordinator for the RTC. Basically, anything that's in the street or right away that's orange, looks like a drum, cone, I basically eat, sleep, and drink cones. So I'm very busy around the valley. A little bit of responsibilities as far as what we focus on is, any projects that we do fund RTC through the CIP process, we're involved in that. We're involved in, and I'm going to focus more related to transit. Before these projects even start, one of the main conversations is how is it going to affect the transit system. We understand that your limits are going to be X, Y, and Z. However, there's people that rely on the transit system on a daily basis, whether it's getting to work, vacationing and things like that. And, one of our main focuses is how to minimize that impact. And the impacts happen every day. I work closely with Jacob in the back here. He's with operations, and as well with Nathan in planning, and also work with Keolis and MV, the contractors that RTC has contracted to provide the services to run the bus system. And I'm emailing almost on a daily basis to people that I've never met before. However, we have built a relationship over the past year and a half since I've been here. And it's really nice to be able to work with people that, you don't necessarily have a face to all of them, but it's nice to see that everybody gets involved. And what the main focus is how to minimize these impacts. For instance, there's a street project. The city of Las Vegas had a maintenance, operations and maintenance project. They were milling and paving Washington Avenue from Rainbow to Decatur. Well, the first thing they want to do is set up cones, and what they do is, I'll use a little bit of different terminology, they basically take a right lane closure and then a football setup. And they want to string these cones from, basically Rainbow to Decatur. Well, between that segment, there's roughly, 6 bus stops in one direction that, is going to affect the ridership. So, one of the things, Nathan got an email from the city, talking about, hey, there's going to be some work going on in this area. I immediately contacted the contractor, spoke with one of the project managers out there. I said, look, we understand that the bus stops are going to be impacted. Everybody knows the rules that, you're not necessarily supposed to close 2 stops in a row. However, we know there's conditions that, this is going to happen depending on what the scope of the work is on the project, whether they're doing a full depth removal. So in this case, I spoke to him, asked him, where are the full depth removals? Where are you just milling down 1 inch? Because in this case, you guys can shorten up the tapers. You guys can allow for the turn pocket, or allow for this bus to turn off. And even if it's a one inch drop, it's not a big deal. So, they accommodated our request by leaving a stop open near one of the busier intersections at Washington and Jones. So, and at the same time, when they are out there, I'll drive the project. And again, we're not funding it. However, it's in Clark County right away. It's affecting transit. So RTC kind of has their hands in everything, whether it's private development as well. As far as a compliance standpoint, we want to make sure that, if these builders are doing something in the right of way, that they're providing pedestrian access, that the taper lengths are correct, that they're not being left out. So me personally, I'm picking on everybody in the valley. It's nice to have those relationships. However, when there's a concern and there's a safety issue, the relationship goes away, and we need to address the issue at hand. I recall another one where they were doing a sewer rehab project on Owens and Nellis. Again, unrelated to RTC, however, affected one of the bus stops. I believe Transit got a call about, the stop was basically right out in front of the gentleman's house. He was in a wheelchair. He didn't have, the access, or he wasn't able to go a half mile down the road and cross Nellis to jump on the next bus stop. I called the private contractor, told him the situation, and went out and looked at the site. realized that there's something that could be done besides just doing a standard right lane closed. There was plenty of right-of-way. They had a half-lane closure. There was room for them to provide a space for that bus to turn in and accommodate this rider, which he would use, almost on a daily basis. Within an hour, the contractor went back out there. He had spoke with the county and said, we're making a revision to this plan. By the end of the day, you'll have this submitted to you. And, it worked out well. So, even though, we all are driving in the right of way, we're all impacted by these cones. We just, again, want to focus on not necessarily our personal commutes in our vehicles, but, as well as be sensitive to transit. So those are just a few stories that I wanted to share with. If you ever have any questions or concerns, or you're wanting to know anything about orange cones, you could feel free to call me, email me, whatever
We'll
works
get
best for
we'll
you.
get his contact information to you, and you can send it out to the community.
Great.
So, yeah.
Any questions?
What, go ahead. I'm sorry, Shane. Go.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, is this program similar, or I guess, are there other programs around the country that are similar, or is this like one of a kind, and we're like breaking ground here and
You know what, that
doing
that
cool
I'm-
stuff here in Vegas?
I'm not real sure of that. I do know that over the past couple years, as a barricade inspector in Henderson, and being able to review plans over the past few years, that it is evolving as far as just from the plan design standpoint. We are requesting for these contractors to identify the stops on their plans. So if you identify the stop on the plans, then they know that, hey, this may affect this stop, or hey, we can accommodate that stop, no problem. So they are improving on the plan design. I reference them to go to Google Maps. If you zoom in close enough, provide the bus stop number, that works out well for us, or the actual route itself. So there is improvement just from the initial submittal standpoint. However, it's still a challenge, on the daily basis. So, we do we work.
I really doubt if somebody, do you know, Catherine, is there anyone have you heard of any other MPOs, transit agencies that have this kind of attention to cones?
Yeah.
So it may not be unique, but it's got to be a handful of any.
Yeah.
So.
My question, I guess I actually have two. Jaywalking, does anybody, is there any one of the two of you who's more apt to look and say, how does this affect people? Because the jaywalking comes from somebody having to run to catch another bus. So if we close the bus stop on Washington, it affects the people going over to the bus stop on Jones to catch now a north-south bus rather than whether they're going east and west. Does somebody pay any kind of attention, or is there any thought given to the jaywalking problems that are caused by a closing?
Well, in this case, to basically a road project where it's just a rehab, there's no sidewalk closed at that time. They're not doing any ADA work. They're mainly focused on the right-of-way, doing the mill and pave. So the marked crosswalks will still be available. The signals are still going to work properly. So they do have the availability and access to utilize the crosswalks at the intersections.
But when a stop is closed, I mean, that's something we work with operations, and try to figure. They are required to come up with a route a way around the bus stop that's closed. And if it's not done properly, yes, that can create a lot of.
I just know that some of them seem like unintended consequences when there's a bus stop closed for whatever reason.
Yeah.
That you have to go up to the next bus stop, then the catching, making the connection to another bus is, I mean, that really is amplified in how much problem it causes, particularly to the disabled. Sometimes their access, they have to go across the construction zone, which is a whole nother.
Does it say, Jacob, that closing bus stops is the last resort? Absolutely. Yeah, we only do it when it is absolutely necessary. For that exact reason.
Okay, that's cool, and I mean, I do ride the bus. The other thing I would say, just as maybe somebody looks at, when they leave the opening for the bus stop, it's not incredibly functional when you're on the bus, because the buses have a real hard time making it in. In other words, they leave out 20 cones. So the bus stop, right in front of the bus stop, it's open. But the buses actually need them going in and coming out. They could leave the barrels in front of the bus stop. The orange cones are perfect in front of the bus stop. Nobody goes there. As long as the bus driver has a
Gotta
chance
get
to
in and out.
get in and get out, it would really make less cones have to be removed.
And that's really the purpose of having them show the bus stops on the plan, because if they're shown on the plan, then number one, the designer can take that into account, and the reviewer at the agency can say, oh, there's a bus stop, we have to have the appropriate taper in and out. Typically what happens is when they're not shown on the plans, and they're discovered, it's just like, but open up the bus stop. So then they just go move the cones out of the way of the bus stop, which is not adequate.
And they don't move the ones that would be helpful to get the bus in and out and back into traffic.
Right, but when you see that, you call Chris, he'll get on the phone, and, you know, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but I think it's a requirement, it's a condition of approval that they show the bus stops on the plan, isn't it?
Well, it's a condition of approval to notify, but initially it wasn't necessarily to show. I think City of Las Vegas has jumped on board where they have to identify. I don't think all the permitting agencies have jumped on board on that, and you know, not all the designers do implement that, but I know that there's been cases where, for instance, North Las Vegas Boulevard, where they're doing this concrete bus bike lane, where, bus lane, and, you know, there was cases where they did have to close multiple stops, and then we had minimum requirements. I think we had to leave I think I requested 400 feet, and then, you know, it went down to 300 because they're basically removing, 10 inches of fill and existing pavement. And then I think we ended up getting it down to 200 foot, but at the same time, the buses were still able to safely get in and out. But, in that case, it's almost like, if we can shrink it down a little bit more and still allow for safe access, then in the long run, as far as once they're in and out, then they can take that portion out and then replace it so everything would be continuous rather than have a bunch of smaller sections that they need to come back and repave. So, we try to work with the contractors, and look out for the best interests of transit, sometimes the answer is just no, and no, we can't do that. Maybe you might have to change the time of when you work, and it's not going to be at 5 in the afternoon when, people are getting off work and relying on the pickup. So, anyhow, I know it's going to be a challenge, but I see improvement, and me personally, I really appreciate working with staff. And like I said, again, I don't have faces with half the people I work with. However, we rely on each other. So I think that we're going in the right direction as far as, looking out for transit. So.
Yeah, well, like I said, we'll get you can call them directly. Go and reach
Okay.
out.
Thank you.
Put yourself. Oh.
Any other questions?
Yeah, thank you. So, the project coordination tool, I'll probably skip this. We'll send you the link. Well, it's just a couple minutes. This basically just shows you the tool that's used in the RPCC, the Regional Project Coordination Committee, to identify projects and to make sure all the people that are involved in a particular project are notified. Basically what I'm doing here, this is obviously a video, is I'm looking at projects that are currently under construction. So I turn on, that's all the red dots. Then this was back when the airport connector was still underway. So you can click on the airport connector, that brings up the basic information, what it is, how much it costs, who the contact person is, how long the project's going to be there. You can zoom in on particular agencies, City of Las Vegas. I think I go to North Las Vegas here. Then you can go down and select the projects that are within the City of North Las Vegas. The red ones are under construction. The green ones were planned. The blue ones were under design. Again, the spatial and temporal representation of the projects. It's the most basic information to help people pick up a telephone and say, what's going on with your project? Can we put these things together somehow? Because I've got a project in a similar area. And this is an example of that. You can click on a project. You can go down here to the buffer. I'm going to pull down here. You can see that 0.25. I think I make it like a mile, something like that. and find projects, so it'll automatically tell the person, the user, which projects are within a mile of the project of interest, my project. Excuse me, then on the left side, it pulls up all those projects, and then they can start making phone calls.
Is this separate from Seeing Orange?
Yes.
This is a different, this is our RTC website?
Yeah, it's not, this is, it's not on the public-facing website.
Oh, it's not, okay,
But we have no problem giving you the link to this to send out to your members.
great.
It's open to the public, it's just not public, it's not served publicly. Because
Okay.
it's really designed for use in the committees.
Okay,
But you're an RTC committee, you can absolutely have access to it. So I believe, long-term goals, we've already talked about them. The big one is getting private development in there. The second big one is to move from coordination to cooperation. Get everything done as fast as you can in the trench that's open the first time. And that is it. We really appreciate your attention. And call anytime. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
You bet.
We have another informational presentation regarding the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada's current bus shelter inventory.
right, and I'll be taking that. We thought it was just time, there's no drama with this, nothing surprising. We're updating you on our inventory. Thought you might just like to see a little bit about our world of shelters. So, the first line is what we refer to as BRT stations, BRT shelters, technically. Technically, Flamingo's not a BRT. It's not an express route. It's not what we would consider, and sort of is maybe a little bit. Jacob's telling me. Okay. Okay. We consider those stops to be BRT. They have different shelters. They were a specific brand, if you will, that we did along with all the road improvements that we did at the time of Flamingo. Sahara is definitely a BRT. BHX and HDX have different looking shelters. SDX, again, different looking. These are all I will call it the fancy shelters. Those are the BRT shelters. There's 244 of them. General Market is the one that you see most commonly, the one with the wavy deep blue roof. There's 864 of those on the street. Outdoor Promotions is the old contractor that used to do all of our bus stops. They don't do that anymore. We do them ourselves, but there's still some old, what we abbreviate them OP. Flat tops, dome tops, about the same number of each of those. OP Tolars look very similar to the general markets, and I'll show you in a minute. There's only 22 of those left on the street. OP True Forms are the shelters on the strip. OP put those in back in their day, and they still look pretty good. Those flat tops and dome tops, not so great. And we're going to be upgrading the lighting on those coming up, and we're also going to start painting some because they don't look so good anymore. So we'd like to have a better image out there. The last one is the private shelters. There are a few here and there. Boulder City has privately owned, privately maintained shelters. There's one on Howard Hughes Parkway. There's one at a couple of gaming properties where those are privately owned. But we count them in our quantity. Those further break down by jurisdiction. If you're interested, this is the kind of stuff we live with every day. So of those, I guess what's interesting is reading down in this case. So those same 2, 4, 6, 7 categories, but now broken down by jurisdiction. And this breakdown, 722 for the county, 619 for Las Vegas, 208 in North Las Vegas, 157 in Henderson, 11 in Boulder City. That's almost exactly the same breakdown for the entire stops. So it's not like, oh, the city of Las Vegas gets all the shelters and all of their bus stops have shelters. That's not true. It's the number of bus stops that have shelters is almost exactly proportionate to the number of bus stops total within each jurisdiction. That's important to us. just happens that way. It's not like we look to see, oh, well, they've already got so many shelters, we're not going to give them any more. We don't take that into account. It's just the way it works out, and, but it's interesting to us. So here's some photos. Oh, I wish this was bigger. Well, it looks great on my computer. Anyway, so the one on the left is the SDX. That's the Strip and Downtown Express. Really nice looking bus stops. Big, usually on raised platforms. Nice and safe, well lit, really nice. The one in the middle on the top is the Sahara, also very nice looking. All along Sahara, they're all the same, pretty much. So that has a certain brand. The General Market is on the top right. That's the one I was telling you about. We have the most of those, and we're going to be putting out some more with our next phase of installations. I've talked to you about that before. That's the one with the wavy blue roof. The one on the bottom left is kind of similar to the one on the top left. Again, it's a well-established, nice big stop, elevated platform, if you will. Nice shelter, gives us a lot of shade. Flamingo is the one on the right. It's easily identifiable by the artwork. Those metal die-cut attachments attached directly to the shelter. Then, here's the older OPs, flat top on the top left, dome top on the top right. Those OP Tolars, there were only a handful of them. They look, again, on the bottom left, they're kind of a precursor to our General Market. They still have the wavy roof. They look a little bit different. And then the true form those are the ones on the Strip. Real big, nice wavy roof, well lit. They look really good. I know you can't possibly read this, but just to show you, they're everywhere. These are all the RTC-owned shelters. So these are all the ones we talked about, the BHX, the General Markets. BRTs, excuse me. BRTs and General Markets, everywhere. And then these are again, those older OP shelters all along the Strip. You can see the Strip alignment there. The private ones out in Boulder City on the lower right. So these are basically the non-RTC ones. But they're everywhere. So that's it, just kind of an update on where we are for shelters, where we are for bus stops, what they look like, some of the terminology that sometimes I forget. You guys don't live with it every day like we do, but that's the terminology that we use about our bus shelters.
Helen, is there a database to know which ones are most aged? Because I know they deteriorate after time and need to be replaced.
Yeah, since we inherited so many from OP, we don't have their data. We know our bus stops when they were installed, our bus shelters, yes. The OP days are a little bit grayer. We're not sure of those exact dates. But we do have a database. Maybe I should do a presentation about that. Maybe I'll do that at a future meeting. We love this stuff in transit amenities. This is interesting stuff to us, and we hope it is to you too. Maybe I'll bring in the bus stop database, and we have photos, we have ridership, we identify every stop by its route, its direction of route. Oh, it's really cool. It's a really cool database. But yeah, we have that database. It's not available to the public. So far it's just for us. That's it. Any questions for me on that? Okie doke. That's all I got. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Ellen. Actually, we are through the main part of our agenda, and we are now going to have a comment period for citizen participation, and I believe we have Dr. Sicking.
Dr. Dean Sicking from the University of Alabama, Birmingham.
Is going to do a presentation for us or
Absolutely.
a discussion. So the floor is yours.
Marin's got the thumb drive. Do you want to come here?
Yeah,
Is that, Chairman?
that's fine.
And I won't take up too much of your time. I just want to point out the opportunities to make your bus stop safer, and not just bus stops, but all your pedestrians. I understand that there's a program installing bollards close to the edge of roadways, in particular urban arterials. That's a very dangerous thing. Bollards are not designed to save the lives of the driver. They're designed to stop the car from hurting other people. And I think that the standards of safety around this country, MUTCD, for example, would not recommend the use of bollards close to urban arterials. That's something you need to think about. But this is Betts.
USB disk E, I think. Let me see. Oh, that's off the USB.
Yeah, that's it. So I'll go through this quickly. Go to the next slide. A little bit about me. I've been working in this area for 35 years. Wrote the standards for roadside safety twice. These are procedures for designing, developing, and evaluating the performance of safety devices on the roadside. Just skip that slide. Go back. Could we back up one slide? Back up one slide. I've basically, in the last 20 years, I've worked with the University of Nebraska, and we developed more safety devices for the highway than all the rest of the country combined. And we redesigned guardrails installed all over the country are using the designs I developed when I was in Nebraska. And basically, it's hard to drive on the highway more than a mile or two on any major freeway in the country without passing one of my safety devices. So we have a lot of experience in this area. I'm certain that we can make this the bus stop barrier and urban arterial pedestrian protection barrier much safer than a bollard and much cheaper as well. You get safety and low cost. And as you read this slide, I developed a safer barrier for NASCAR, and I was awarded the National Medal of Technology by George Bush for my work on highways in NASCAR in 2005. I'm a charter fellow of the National Academy of Inventors. I've been doing this for a while. We've had quite success. I'm going to skip this next slide. Go 2 slides. Basically, the objective here is to protect pedestrians sitting in these benches or standing there near a bus stop. We can do that without a great cost and still adhere to standards related to handicaps. Can't remember the ADA. That's right, ADA. Keep pushing my forward button. It's not working. Can you forward that? And so basically the way the bus stop barrier would work is we would put in very stiff poles that slide into a sleeve on the ground and connect those poles with a barrier that would prevent high-speed passenger vehicles and SUVs from penetrating the barrier. Go to the next slide, see if it'll play. There we go. So we basically designed this system to be essentially rigid for automobiles, but at 45, 50 miles an hour, this will meet safety standards because we rely on the safety features in the passenger vehicles to save the drivers. And go to the next slide. You can see there's very little flexure of these barriers. Under this is 45 mile an hour, 25 degree impact. That's design level impact for urban arterials. And the barrier barely bends. There would be very little maintenance. And very, very economical. Again, another view of that same impact. And now go to the next slide. Basically, there's 2 options for treating this. If there's another barrier or a building that prevents that the barrier can be tucked behind, then we can flood the end of the barrier like shown here, tuck that barrier in behind another building, say a retaining wall or other structure that prevents vehicles from getting in behind the end. But if there's nothing like that there, you have to put an attenuator there to accommodate vehicles hitting the end of the barrier. And next slide. These are the bollards. These were an example of how we would mount the steel tubes that hold the barrier in place. They basically are 1 foot down. So if you have utilities in the area, it shouldn't be a problem. Seldom are utilities put less than 1 foot below the surface of the ground. So this system would accommodate any barrier system you need. Go to the next slide. And for the end of the barrier, we would have an energy absorbing system like this one. Basically, it would take that steel tube, flatten it, and curl it down underneath the impacting vehicle. And this is very efficient energy absorber, very economical energy absorber, and could provide more than adequate safety for the drivers, as well as protecting the bus stop patrons from a vehicle impacting into the region. So, next slide. So we can install on existing and new construction bus stops. I don't know about the rest of that. Advertising revenue could pay for the entire cost of the installation. They're much safer than bollards. I think that's the key that I want to let you know today. Next slide. This is an example of the advertising that the NASCAR uses, but you can do the same thing on the bollards. Next slide. The same thing on this barrier. You put advertisements right there, and these could be either static signs or dynamic signs with UV electrical cell chargers to run the very measured signs. What do you call those things?
Solar panels?
Solar panels. I'm having a hard day. So solar panels to power those signs. You could just about pay for this bus stop in a very short period of time. Go ahead. Next slide. Now that's basically all I had. The emphasis here is we can make these barriers safer than bollards. They can be more effective than bollards. For the most part, if you don't hit the end of it, almost maintenance free, and you use advertising to offset the cost. It's a win-win-win. I don't see anything negative here.
Very good. Thank you for the presentation. At this time, I guess, do you have any questions for Dr. Sicking?
Is there any place where they're actually protecting bus stops?
Not today.
And is there a reason for that?
We have yet to get federal approval. It takes some time, but that day is coming.
And when you say federal approval for what?
Well, if you install a safety device adjacent to any national highway system road, and many of your streets wind up being on the system, you have to have federal approval of the testing and evaluation. And that's the stage we're in right now.
It's independent testing?
Yeah, we use third-party independent testing. It's not required by the feds, but we do it because it's just the right
Before we
way.
can implement any of this stuff here, you would have to get that federal approval. And knowing how the federal government works, we're still talking years in the future.
No, not years, months.
So you have an inside track someplace to make this move fast.
Well, no, the average response from the federal government is 6 months. And the key is having the third-party testing speeds that up quite a bit.
Quick question. How does the material, or how does the system work and comply with like ADA or ProWay? It seems like boxed in around the bus stop. So how does that work?
I can answer this probably better than Dr. Sicking because I ride the buses. In Alan's presentation, there's bus stops that face both ways. So that you, on Sahara, I know. So you can sit facing this way and the other one faces this way. They're not blocked off completely in that it's a size thing for the ADA as opposed to access is still granted because one end is open. It's not an entire arc around there, but it's on the traffic side. So they do have access where a wheelchair would clear and then be able to come around, just like a pedestrian. If you're coming from this side, you're going to have to walk around to the end and come in. If you're coming from the other side, the entrance is right near you. So it's just the fact of getting around to get in, and it is small enough to be ADA compliant on virtually everything that we have that we've been able to see and take photos of. If that answers your question.
So these would be installed at the edge of sidewalks?
Not at the edge, no, at the edge of the bus stops, much more than the sidewalks. They're back as far from the sidewalks as the bus stops themselves are. They're not very size intensive front to back.
But-
If we take less than a foot, I would think depth.
They're 6 inches.
But in the bus stops that we have the most problems with, that are the most vulnerable, are the ones that are within the sidewalk.
Right.
So you can't put anything else there. There is no room.
Some room for that, and
You can put the-
again, back to her presentation, the ones on, the bus stops on Flamingo now have seats this wide instead of this wide. And this wide is what we would take up, or what.
You can literally put it on top of the curb.
Pardon?
You can literally put it on top of the curb.
Put it on top of the curb, if need be. But there is room, again, and it might not be possible to put at every single bus stop, but the vast majority of them will still be ADA compliant and also safe.
So,
So
So-
if I understand you correctly, you put this between the edge of the curb and the edge of the roadway?
Right.
Or
If-
right in front of the bus shelter?
if need be.
You have about the room that we have from this table, Bill, when you're sitting at the bus stop in front of you, and it would come past me and this way, and take some of my, I might have to pull my feet in a little bit, but a truck doesn't hit me or a car doesn't hit me, and that's whatever inconvenience it is, it's no different than now I have a smaller seat to sit on. But that room that we saved from those seats, I was absolutely electrified when I saw it. Now we have 6 more inches to play with. It makes it a much easier installation. It's no different than the presentation from the gentleman with the orange cones. They have to take up some room, but the least amount of room that they can take up, the better it is for everyone.
But, you know, there would be some situations, some existing stops where they're just impossible to treat without moving the bus bench back some from the roadway. But
I'm still not understanding. Is it going in front of the bus stop, or is it going out near the street?
Oh, it's much closer to the bus stop than the street.
when you have space.
Yeah.
Then I have,
They could actually be attached to the bus stop.
then I have concerns about having riders that are boxed into a situation where they need to move quickly and can't because of this barrier now we placed in front of them.
For example,
Can't get away from the car anyway. It's a moot point.
But-
I'm not even thinking about a car. I'm thinking about just somebody coming up and wanting to rob me, for example.
Yeah, oh, you're right. There are downsides to the technology that may be able to be overcome. But for the vast majority of the systems, I think that's a much lesser problem than people getting struck by a vehicle. You know, they can rob you in the middle of the sidewalk just as easily. I don't think that's an overwhelming factor in somebody being at risk from a
Right, but I think there's a bigger picture that has to be looked at from the RTC standpoint.
Right, and what we need to make clear is that this is a presentation only. We are not taking a vote on this. We also need to make it clear that Committee Member Rosen has a financial interest in this application. So for that reason, it was just a presentation for our information for now, and where it goes from here, I don't know, but it was during the citizen comment, Dr. Sicking is here as a citizen, making a presentation to us for a possible safety option for us to consider.
thank you.
Thank you for that clarification.
I don't think we need to discuss it further.
Sounds very good. With that, we are at the end of our agenda, unless there's something else that anyone has.
When's our next meeting, Maren?
December 21st.
December 21st? Okay.
Santa Claus time. Everyone come dressed up and let's have a party, huh? Very good. With hearing nothing more, then we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone.